The late singer Wong Kar-kui's tombstone vandalized. Police arrested 2 suspects. The largest cocaine seizure by police so far this year. And a divisive mobilization law comes into force in Ukraine as Russia keeps up its attack on the country's Kharkiv region. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Wong Kar-kui, the late lead vocalist of Hong Kong band Beyond, had his tombstone defaced, smashed and vandalized this morning. Police have arrested 2 men on suspicion of criminal damage. Sources say authorities so far believe the suspects were trying to attract attention online.
Footage circulated online showed a Cantonese-speaking man at late singer Wong Kar-kui's grave holding a family-sized bottle of Coke and splashed the liquid onto Wong's tombstone. The man then licked and kissed Wong's tombstone, including his photo, bit out flowers in a bouquet, scribbled around with a black marker pen, including Wong's photo and a slab of stone with a guitar engraving on top. He also kicked away the bouquets and struck the tombstones with his foot, while hurling expletives. In another video, the same man belted out one of Beyond's signature songs, Boundless Oceans, Vast Skies. He kissed the tombstone and poured the soda drink onto the incense sticks. With an iron hammer, he smashed Wong's photo on the tombstone. It is understood the act of vandalism unfolded at the Junk Bay Chinese Permanent Cemetery in Cheung Kwan O at about 11 a.m. Cemetery staff reported a case to police after spotting 2 men acting suspiciously and finding the damage on the grave. Police arrested 2 male suspects aged 15 and 23 respectively at the site. Sources say one of them is a secondary school student while the other is an air conditioning maintenance technician. One of the suspects claimed to have autism and ADHD, but no medical proof can be presented so far. Sources say authorities believe the alleged vandals were trying to attract attention online. Police have seized a hammer, fizzy drinks, and a marker pen as evidence. Wong's tombstone is now covered with white cloth, with cemetery staff on guard nearby. An assistant to Wong Kar-keung, the late singer's brother, reached the site to see the aftermath. He said Wong Kar-kui had always tried to spread the message of love and peace, and it's infuriating to see such acts of vandalism. Some mainland fans of Beyond who are now in Hong Kong were devastated by the sight of ruin and defacement. This woman said it's heartbreaking to witness this, as Wong is a great person whose songs have always uplifted and encouraged people. Under Hong Kong laws, the maximum penalty for criminal damage is 10 years in prison.
Police busted this year's largest drug trafficking case involving cocaine. Officers seized a total of 225 kilograms of cocaine with an estimated market value of more than $200 million. The suspected cocaine was found on Friday when police raided a warehouse in Ping Che in the northeast of the New Territories. The suspected drugs were stashed in 2 containers shipped from the South American country of Suriname, declared to be carrying 40 tons of scrap iron. Police said the 225 kilograms of suspected drugs took up just 0.5% of the total weight of the container's content, making it harder for authorities to detect. Police arrested 2 suspects in connection with the case. Aged 22 and 29, the pair will appear at Fanling Magistrates Courts on Monday.
Our investigation revealed that the drug trafficking syndicate employed some, we believe that unwitting truck workers to assist them to dismantling approximately those 40 tons of scrap iron from the container. With the syndicate overseeing the operation, the unloading. We found 2 workers and arrested the other 2 suspected members of the drug syndicate.
Authorities are investigating a chemical leak at a petrochemical factory in Yuen Long Industrial Estate early this morning. No injuries were reported. The Mo Sang-ai reports.
The chemical leak occurred at a factory belonging to the Hong Kong Petrochemical Company on Wan Lok Street in Yuen Long. Firefighters remained on site and continued to spray water onto the chemical tank, aiming to cool down the container. A robot was also deployed. The Fire Services Department said they received a report before 1 a.m. from residents who lived near the factory, complaining of a strong and pungent smell of gas in the area. When firefighters arrived at the 200 by 300 meter factory site, they found one of the two styrene monomer storage tanks was emitting white smoke. 81 firefighters and paramedics, along with 24 fire engines, were deployed to the scene during the operation. Speaking to the press, Assistant Division Officers of Hazardous Material, Lam Kok Hong said styrene monomer is mostly used to produce plastics. Lam said the chemical may cause irritation to people's skin and eyes, adding the compound is highly flammable. While the concentration of styrene monomer has to reach 50 parts per million to be dangerous, the officer said only 1 ppm of the chemical was detected on site. News 9, TVB News.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi said China will continue to support Tajikistan in promoting its industrial development. This came as Wang met with Tajik Foreign Minister Sirojidi Muridin. Wang Yi said Tajikistan and China are connected with mountains and rivers, and China will continue to support the 4 development strategies proposed by Tajik President Emomali Rahmon. Muridin meanwhile said the two countries have a high-quality relationship. Wang ended his visit to Tajikistan, and his next destination is Kazakhstan. In Ukraine, a divisive mobilization law came into force on Saturday as Kyiv struggles to boost troop numbers to counter a Russian offensive. The measures reflect the growing strain that more than 2 years of war with Russia has had on Ukraine's forces. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also signed 2 other laws, allowing prisoners to join the army and increasing fines for draft dodgers 5-fold. Nasri Karim has more.
Alexei is a 68-year-old owner of a car repair shop in Kyiv. He expects to lose 70% of his workers to the new military mobilization law, likely forcing him to close his business. Employees will be laid off. There will be no one to serve. We will not be able to pay taxes, he said. Of the 220 workers who are part of this Kyiv municipal unit, around 60 will be eligible for the draft, the department head said. Mykola Doroshuk, a 47-year-old municipal worker, said if they are drafted, no one will be around to repair infrastructure issues such as heating. This is the training center for the Ukrainian military's 3rd Assault Brigade. This recruit, using the call sign Rojas, said the soldiers on the front lines are the ones being held hostage. He said the soldiers there are holding positions of 3 when there should be 10, referring to Ukraine's depleted forces who are being pushed back by Russian advances. After months of delays, lawmakers passed a bill in mid-April, a week after Ukraine lowered the draft age for men to 25 from 27. The new legislation makes it easier to identify conscripts in the country. It also offers incentives such as cash bonuses or money for buying a house or a car, items many Ukrainians cannot afford. In the northeastern Kharkiv region, Russia claims to have taken another village as Ukraine's military awaits delivery of promised US weapons. Ukraine said 6 civilians were injured by shelling, including 2 teenagers and an 8-year-old. In Vovchansk, around 70 kilometers northeast of Kharkiv city, a 60-year-old woman was killed. The town is now down to around 100 residents after some 6,000 others were evacuated. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his forces had some success in repelling Russian assaults further south in eastern Donetsk. Meanwhile, Poland said it is investing $2.5 billion in beefing up security and deterrence along its borders with Russia and Moscow's close ally, Belarus. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said it's part of the East Shield project to build military fortifications on around 400 kilometers of the frontier. Nasri Karim, TVB News.
Georgia's president has vetoed the so-called Russian law, which opponents of the legislation say stifles free speech. The president said it must be abolished but does not have the final say, and the bill is still likely to pass through parliament this week. Salome Zorabishvili is at odds with the ruling party, Georgian Dream. She says their bill is against the constitution and European standards. The proposal sparked protests, which are continuing over the weekend, with some burning Russian flags outside parliament. Demonstrators say it resembles rules used by the Kremlin to silence opponents. They say the government wants to restrict debate ahead of October's parliamentary elections, and the law will obstruct Georgia's bid to join the EU. The legislation requires Georgian media and non-governmental organizations to register if they receive more than 20% of funding from abroad. The ruling party can override the presidential veto.
We strongly strongly feel that she's on our side and she's going to fight with us. We're very hopeful that they will not be able to cancel her veto, like override the veto, but we will wait for Monday what's going to happen. But this is not an end. Even if they adopt the law, obviously we're going to continue fighting and coming here every day because Georgian people will never give up.
Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico's condition was serious but stable, the country's health minister said on Saturday. Meanwhile, the man accused of shooting him is ordered to remain behind bars. Fico underwent 2 hours of surgery on Friday to remove dead tissue, leading to a better prognosis for his recovery. However, Slovak Health Minister Zuzana Dolinkova said Fico was still in serious condition and unable to move to a hospital in the capital, Bratislava. The 59-year-old Prime Minister was attacked as he greeted supporters after a government meeting on Wednesday in the town of Handlova. Meanwhile, the man accused of attempting to assassinate him made his first court appearance. The man, identified as Jurak C, was ordered to remain in custody after being charged with attempted murder. And still ahead, new cracks in Israel's ruling coalition. Flooding in parts of Guangxi after torrential rain. And Xia Baolong leaves Macau at the end of a week-long inspection visit. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is coming under increasing pressure to come up with a plan of how Gaza should look when the war against Hamas ends. A member of his war cabinet threatened to resign as the White House National Security meets with Netanyahu. Jake Sullivan is also likely to push the Israeli leader for answers. David Garrett reports.
Saying their final goodbyes, men weeping and desperately holding on to the covered dead bodies of friends killed in what officials say was a strike on a refugee camp. 5 were reported killed, more are missing. The dead, said to be police officers, were brought to the hospital in Deir al-Balah to be buried. They stood little chance of survival. Mourners gathered praying and paying their respects. Sunday's view from Israel looking into Gaza shows the fallout from more strikes as Israel continues to attack Hamas. It is images like these which may have prompted popular centrist, arguably Benjamin Netanyahu's biggest political threat, Benny Gantz, to challenge the Prime Minister. A member of the 3-man war cabinet, Gantz said he will resign from the government on June 8th if Netanyahu does not present a post-war plan for Gaza. Along with maintaining Israeli security control, Gantz said Netanyahu must establish an American, European, Arab and Palestinian administration that will manage the Strip, lay the foundation for a future and return the displaced residents of the north to their homes. Gantz then told the Prime Minister, Israel is watching you. You must choose between Zionism and cynicism. Pressure on Netanyahu is mounting among the population. Many of these protesters would appear to agree with Gantz. Police fired water cannon at a large group demonstrating against Netanyahu's handling of the war. In a week when 4 dead hostages were found, 1 on Saturday, these people think a deal should have been struck to bring captives home. Others think the scale of the military operation in Gaza was a mistake in the first place. At this organised rally, the sentiment was similar. Family and friends of hostages gathered. Many fear their loved ones are dead, but still have hope.
We will not give up. We will not back down. We will not fail. Hamas must let all the hostages go home now.
I want to repeat the promise I made when I last spoke in this square. We will not forget you. We will not abandon you.
To the family members of those held hostage, I say we hear you, we stand with you, we will not stop working until you are reunited with your loved ones.
International pressure also coming on Netanyahu to have a vision for the future of Gaza after Hamas. David Garrett, TVB News.
Saudi Arabia's 88-year-old King Salman will undergo medical checks after suffering from a high temperature and joint pain. According to state media, King Salman will undergo the examinations at the royal clinics at Al Salam Palace in Jeddah, the Red Sea port city. The statement said the treating medical team decided to conduct some examinations to diagnose his health condition. In April, the monarch entered a hospital for medical checks and was later discharged. Meanwhile, his son, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the country's de facto leader, met White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan for discussions on a wide-ranging security agreement. They also discussed a credible track for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Pope Francis called for an improvement in living conditions for convicts after visiting a prison in Verona. The pontiff was greeted at Montorio Penitentiary with applause and chants. The Pope told inmates he was concerned about overcrowding, and despite their convictions, he felt close to them. The 87-year-old also went to the Roman amphitheater in Verona, a town probably best known as the fictional home of Romeo and Juliet. It is estimated 10,000 turned out to see him and listen as he delivered a message of peace. Residents waved rainbow flags as Francis told them the future is not only in the hands of great leaders and elites, it is above all in the hands of people. The head of the Catholic Church also met with religious leaders as well as Israeli and Palestinian peace activists. Heavy downpours have pounded the Guangxi region on the mainland this weekend. Torrential rain has also led to flooding in multiple neighborhoods, with main roads being inundated. The city of Nanning was among the hard-hit areas. Floodwaters left private cars on the roadside half submerged. In Longmengang town in Qinzhou City, the cumulative rainfall in 24 hours topped 610 millimeters. The highest level of rainfall per hour reached almost 190 millimeters, breaking the record for precipitation in Guangxi. Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Xia Baolong, today completed his week-long inspection visit to Macau. Macau Chief Executive Ho Yat-sing said Xia is pleased with the work of the Macau SAR government and did not touch on the CE election in October during the visit. Mo Sang-ai reports.
On the last day of his inspection visit, Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Xia Baolong, went to the Macau East Asian Games Dome. He then left the SAR for Zhuhai. In a press conference, Macau Chief Executive Ho Yat-sing said Xia had attended more than 40 events during his 7-day trip and focused on several local industries, including health and education. Ho also mentioned that Xia described Macau as a pearl in the palm, showing the importance of the SAR. Meanwhile, Ho said Xia made a series of suggestions, adding that the Macau authorities understand they have to make a lot of improvements, such as enhancing the city's public transport system. Ho also said the government will focus on developing the economy and will utilize the Huangqing-Guangdong-Macau in-depth cooperation zone in the future. Macau will hold its chief executive election in October. Ho said such a topic was not brought up during Xia's visit. As to whether he will run for the post again, Ho said he has not made a decision because it is still early. Mo Sang-ai, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.